All right, so I watched this video on Myth Vision podcast. He had Alex Malpass destroys presuppositional apologetics like you've never seen before. I got to tell you, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I was a little bit disappointed. I even did a premiere video for it. I was hoping, Alex Malpass, as I've mentioned before, is the best and the brightest in the atheist community. And I was kind of really hoping for, that he was going to lay some real challenge down, that he was going to dig into presuppositional apologetics before he went on the channel. Now I understand that they meant the title somewhat facetiously. It was somewhat playful because it wasn't really a takedown at all. It was more just like a basic primer on, presuppositional apologetics. I mean, it was okay, but it's, I was really hoping, Derek even told him not to go too deep into the philosophy. What? He did. He told him and said, don't go too heavy into the philosophy. You got one of the best philosophers in town on your channel talking about a really philosophically laden series of arguments, and you tell him don't go into the philosophy? Well, what the F? I mean, I was like, come on, man. What do you think I'm here for, dude? I'm here for him to what I was really hoping is that he was going to lay down some real challenges and give me something to really think about. And I was going to have to think about it for 2 days and really struggle with it. As it was kind of like a basic primer on presuppositional apologetics, not very in-depth. Some of it was okay. I mean, some of it was good. The one good part was the one little part where he did start addressing the philosophy. He pointed out that a lot of this traces back to Immanuel Kant. He pointed out that the preconditions of intelligibility is basically a Kantian idea. He started making veiled references to, anyone who's been watching my videos, remember I said two things about Kant. Why he is not spectacularly useful to us as Christian apologists. Two main defects of Kant, otherwise he'd be really useful to us. One, he is notoriously hard to understand. You have to really struggle to understand Kant. Now, Alex said the same thing in this video. He said something very similar. And two, Kant, generally speaking, lays all of his insights firmly within the human mind, in the conception of the human brain as part of the conceptual framework, which isn't quite so useful to us as theists. Why? Because it's pretty consistent with atheism. If everything is taking place inside the brain, Kant often, one critique of Kant is it can easily reduce to solipsism. If everything is taking place inside your brain, okay, that's perfectly consistent with atheism. For example, Alex Malpass brings up the ontological status of the laws of logic. Not my favorite thing to bring up in terms of presupp apologetics. Why? You can make a case that it's an internal tool of inference, internal, part of your conceptual framework, not extant to the human being, which makes it consistent with atheism. If everything's taking place inside your brain, then atheism is nothing to account for. That's what we thought the whole time, see? That's what they thought the whole time. Okay, so then the part where Alex Malpass's analysis was good, it was really basic though. He didn't even really explain, but he made a veiled reference to what Kant calls the transcendental unity of apperception. Remember I said hard to understand? That's a mouthful, right? Transcendental unity of apperception. It's word salad, Craig. It's not word salad. It's a cogent idea. But you have to struggle to really understand what Kant is getting at. And that's a perfect example. He gave you a basic idea of what that means. And basically, it really, in general, basic what it means is prior to you engaging with the world, when you open your eyes, if you didn't do this, part of your cognitive architecture, your brain is going to work processing what you see prior to you seeing it, correlating it, making it all intelligible to you. It is actively working on your behalf to make your experience intelligible to you. If it weren't doing that, everything would appear to you as chaos. Okay, so when you open your eyes and you look at the world, what do you see? Inside, you see a couch, you look out the window, you see, a house, trees, cars. Okay, that's because your brain is correlating this all this stuff and pre-processing it so that it's intelligible to you. Other than that, it would just be sensory overload. It'd be totally chaotic and you couldn't make sense of anything. Now, for why this is important, first of all, it's a profound revelation. Second of all, it split the difference. Kant was looking to split the difference between the empiricists and the rationalists, and he thoroughly did. Okay? And he came to this conclusion using only ideas from philosophy. So all of you who are in that philosophy, Arguments aren't evidence crew. A lot of you are in that. Okay, he used only arguments and only from philosophy. Wasn't until 150 years later or so that they started empirically verifying for his insights and found out it's 100% legit. So what I just told you is 100% legitimate. 100% case closed, how your brain operates. But he discerned that only through thinking clearly about it. So that's important on a lot of different levels. Okay? Now, if you want that proved to you, go watch Anil Seth. He is a neuroscientist. Pretty sure he's an atheist. Also pretty sure he's a materialist. He's not trying to prove Kant, but he literally can prove it to you. What does he do? He shows you a series of colors. Okay? He is not showing you a dog. He is showing you a series of swirling colors on a screen. Your brain, everyone watching it, including me, including you, everyone, atheist, theist, Christian, Jew, miscellaneous, we all look at these swirling colors and we see a dog. It's not a dog. What's going on? Our brain is precondition of intelligibility. Our brain is taking an educated guess based off of our own experience of what it thinks we should be looking at, and it's finessing the difference between that and what we see. So it's showing us dog, going into our files and going, well, this looks close to this, so I'll show Craig dog. Why? Because if it is a dog, you could get hurt. It's for your survival, basically. It's correlating your experience so that it's intelligible to you. Okay, so it's absolutely case closed happens. It's what we do. We don't see what's out there. We re-represent the world back to ourselves in a form intelligible to us. And our brain is doing a lot of active work on our behalf prior to us opening our eyes. Okay, so that's non-negotiable. That's the insight of Kant. And it was an insight gleaned only through philosophy and clear thinking. He didn't bring any empirical investigations to find that out. They found out 150 years later through empiricism that he was right. Okay? So the other thing that Alex Malpass said, he started making veiled references to, there's a thing in philosophy called the problem of universals. If you know philosophy, you would have known that that's what he was doing. He starts talking about colors and our colors out there in the world. 2 years ago, I would have said, I'm sure Alex Malpass knows the philosophy. 2 years ago, I would have said he knows it better than I do, but now I'm not so sure he knows it necessarily better than I do. But I know he knows the philosophy behind this. What I was really hoping for is that, he was going to really delve into presuppositional apologetics and come with real objections philosophically and give me something to think about for 2 days. That's what I was really hoping for. But, Derek told him, don't go too heavy into philosophy. I don't understand why you get best philosopher in town and tell him don't go into philosophy. Waste everyone's time. I don't know. Okay, I don't really care about his opinions on other stuff. So, it was sort of a wash. It's okay, but it was sort of a wash. Now, getting back to presups. Why do this at all? So, the one thing he laid hold of also, which Stephanie was starting to get, by the way, like, I don't know if I said this in this video yet, but one of the defects of presuppositional apologetics, the reason why it gets such a bad rap is a lot of people who practice it don't understand the philosophy at all. The philosophy is not astronomically complex, but it's relatively complicated, okay? And a lot of the people who present presuppositional type arguments don't really understand the philosophy. So what they're trying to accomplish with their precepts, I don't know. I watched them and I'm like, what are you trying to do exactly? They say stuff like, the famous one is Darth Dawkins, where he says, like, how do you justify the metaphysical ultimate? And says weird things and tries to trap people. But does he even understand? I mean, I guess he does, but, it's relatively complicated. Evidentiary apologetics is straightforward, really easy. Straightforward, really easy. There's the evidence for the resurrection. You believe it? No. Okay, here's some more evidence. You believe it now? No, I don't, actually. It's straightforward, right? There's nothing to not understand. Okay, presuppositional apologetics is relatively complicated because at the higher end of it, it delves into some pretty complex philosophy. Not astronomically complex. It's not neuroscience, but it's, more complicated than most stuff. That's part of why it gets a bad rap. Now, he started talking about the ontological status. That's where Stephanie started to get this, and this is where it's most useful for us, the theists. Ontological status. Key. That's one of the keys. Depending on how you answer philosophical questions, Okay, and I'll go into this specifically in a minute, but depending on how you, me the theist, you the atheist, how we answer philosophical questions, that automatically rules out or automatically entails other answers. Remember what I told you a worldview was? A worldview is a network of assumptions and a network of commitments that are sometimes really resolute and sometimes unknown to the person in three key areas: metaphysics, epistemology, values, and ethics. And if you hold to something really resolute in one area, it tends to bleed over into other areas. And furthermore, if you hold to something really resolute in one area, sometimes it cancels out or negates things in other areas. So Stephanie was starting to get this when she made her video. She asked a fundamental philosophical question about the ontological status of mathematics. It's a common question through philosophy. Is math discovered or invented? Most of you theists, we lean towards discovered. If an atheist says discovered, there's potentially problematic. Okay, why? Because it's not necessarily consistent with atheism. There's some justification they're going to have to do. It's not necessary. It means that there is things outside, extant to a human being, transcendent and immaterial objects. Does that start to sound suspiciously like God? It should. Why? Because it's suspiciously dissimilar, ontologically speaking. So then you can start to ask atheist fundamental questions. Okay, you believe the ontological status of that transcendent immaterial thing. Why not this one? But that's not even the gist of the argument. I'm just pointing out some things that can generate from this. That's why I said these are going to lead to a whole bunch of philosophical arguments coming down the pike that heavily favor the theist. Why? Because if you answer the ontological status of math as a Platonist, you say math exists, numbers are discovered and they exist, okay? Stephanie asked us in the video, what do you think of numbers? Do you think they're discovered or invented? There are people who say invented. Okay, if you say invented, now you've got another series of problems. What do you mean invented? Justify that. Justify that. So there's ways that this is going to potentially create problems one way or the other. And worldview analysis is something that can take place without me ever talking to an atheist at all. Why? Because atheism generally, in principle, is going to resolve down to three core philosophies. If there are any other atheists out there, I haven't met them. I don't know where they are. If the atheists in the United States of America and listening to me on YouTube, it's going to be one of three things. You're going to be either a materialist, a naturalist, or empiricist. That's it. There's one guy I've heard of once who called himself a Platonic atheist, and I don't think that position can be justified at all. Now, there might be other types of atheists out there. Maybe there's somebody, if there's somebody else out there who has another underlying philosophy, let me know, and then we'll talk about it. But other than that, it's going to resolve down to one of those three prongs. You're either empiricist, and naturalist, or materialist. So I can undercut empiricism, naturalism, materialism without ever talking to you, to show you, to challenge your worldview. Now the question is, why would you do that, Craig? Because it's imperative. It's imperative that I do that. I have no choice. I have no choice in the matter. Why? You forced my hand. Why do we do this? Why do we do this? Okay, before I go into the whys of it, one more thing about laying the foundation. When you resolutely commit to something in one area, okay, this is how we can do worldview analysis without ever engaging. It doesn't have to be the way precepts do this. I'm not yelling at anyone in particular. I'm like, you're yelling a lot. Craig, you always yell at you. Okay, fine. I yell at my videos, but I'm not yelling at anyone in particular, okay? So I'm not pressing anyone. I'm critiquing atheist worldviews in general, giving you clear lines that you can think of on your own, right? So there's nothing personal at stake here. I'm not saying anything to anybody personally. So you don't have to get up in someone's snout and get all manly man. You can do worldview analysis without ever engaging the person at a personal level. Why? Because generally things in your worldview, if you commit to something resolutely in one area, it either entails or implies commitments in other areas, or it negates things that you tend to believe in another area. I'll give you the perfect example. I'll give you a couple of examples. Why do I always keep going back to the Richard Dawkins, the famous Richard Dawkins? Why? Because that's a classic matter and motion is all there is type of materialist. Says, I dance to the music of my DNA. There is no good, there is no evil, only blind, pitiless indifference. That is a classic that used to be the most atheists went to that. It is a classic 100% consistent with matter and motion is all there is materialist atheist. Classic. And the reason why it's not held to by that many people nowadays, it's too resolute. It's too red. There's no inconsistencies in it, but it is really hard to account for the world as it actually occurs. Why? Because it rules out a lot of other possibilities. If you don't understand that, I'm not unpacking for it in this particular video. It rules out other commitments. Why? It's so resolute. It rules out probably commitments that Richard Dawkins holds to in other contexts. Do you understand now? You can't believe 2 + 2 = 4 over here and believe 2 + 2 = 5 over here. Why? It's inconsistent. It doesn't work. Why do people not experience cognitive dissonance when they do this? Because they don't know they're doing it. Oftentimes, how people resolve these worldview conflicts is they don't know. They don't examine what this worldview actually entails if you break it down to what you really truly are committing to. Most people don't really understand what it means to commit to materialism. So you can debunk materialism and then go, are you still a materialist? Because you can't be, like the one that I keep going back to. It's really hard to justify certain types of other commitments as a materialist. Why? Because they don't reduce to material properties. Yale University, remember the argument I made? Does not reduce to what? To material properties. So it's really hard to justify as a strict, reductive materialist. The reason why a lot of people don't adopt the Richard Dawkins paradigm anymore, once upon a time almost every atheist did, is they found that it was really hard to justify other commitments. You can't believe 2 + 2 = 4 over here and believe 2 + 2 = 5 over here. How do people resolve the difference? They don't know they're doing it. Once you start getting hip to the fact that you're doing it, you either stop doing it or you just become a mess. Become an incoherent mess. Yeah, I understand that. You're free to be an incoherent mess if you want to, but the whole point of argumentation is to kind of show you the light. This is the better way. Why? Because this can be justified. This we can rationally hold to. What I'm ultimately doing, as I've said before, is trying to develop a consistent set of criteria. There is you, the atheist, and me, the theist, and we can judge every knowledge claim that comes down the pike and look for a set of consistent criteria in every situation so we know, are we warranted to believe this? Are we justified in holding to that? And do it consistently. And the only claim I'm ever making, and you're not going to like the claim, but it's not that big of a claim, but you still ain't going to like it as an atheist, it heavily favors the theist if you do it correctly. Oh, that would hurt, Greg. Heavily favors the theist if you do it correctly. Why? Because atheists have been cheating the whole time. Because you guys have been cheating the whole freaking time. Most atheists, remember I cut atheists in two groups, honest atheists, team player atheists. Honest atheists never do this. Team player atheists do this all the time. The criteria by which they judge their atheist talking points are not, does this help me get to truth? Sorry, it's not even close. I don't know if I posted the video yet, but there's a video where I told you Matt Dillahunty had almost a cow. But this guy came up and started talking the philosophy of epistemology, and Matt Dillahunty was a full-on meltdown. I know he almost has a full-on meltdown every week, Greg. I understand that. This time he really almost blew a gasket. Okay? Why? Because there's a set of criteria that Matt Dillahunty's been using for things that enter his basket of arguments. And that criteria is not valid. It is not, does this help me get at the truth? It is, does this help me promote atheism? All the team player atheists have been doing that. It's called cheating. All of them have been doing it. All of them. It is not valid. So you have a whole bunch of things that you float around, and you'll see. If you go look at people challenging me in the comment section, why? Because it's always the goofy idiot atheists. Always. No intelligent atheist has commented on my videos thus far. There are intelligent atheists out there that don't comment on my videos. Why? They got better things to do to watch your stupid videos, Greg. Fine, fair enough. We're intelligent atheists. You just said that, so we don't waste our time watching you, dumbass. Right? Fine, fair enough. I opened myself up for that one. You took the. I'll take it. I'll take the bullet. I'll take your bullets. I'll take your bullets. Okay, fine, fair enough. I did open myself up for that. So, no intelligent atheists have commented on my videos thus far in these last series of videos, save for Dave Rollins. I thought you said intelligent atheist. No, that's a cheap shot. Nobody. Why? But the goofy atheists, they try to plug in the atheist tropes. They just try to because they don't even understand the freaking tropes. Half the times they don't understand the arguments that they're even talking about. That's why they say such stupid, glaring things. Well, because they don't know what the F they're talking about. And they don't really care about argumentation. So they try and plug in the atheist trope, but it doesn't apply. So what has that got to do with what I said? You'll see me ask that a lot. Did you watch the video? Watch my comments. Often I will say, did you even watch the video? Why? Because usually they don't. Or the comments seem like they didn't. Why? Because it doesn't do with what I said in the video. And they just try to plug in the tropes that don't apply. This is all well and good, but did I sense any evidence in there? I didn't get any evidence. The tropes don't apply. So they plug them in haphazardly. Why? Because they only adopt these paradigms, these tropes, for one criteria, to promote atheism, not because they help them understand the world, not because they help them, adjudicate things properly, not because they point to truth. They use one criteria, right? Help them promote atheism. They're team player atheists. That's what their agenda is. I told you the Answers from Reason crew doesn't do that. They actually belabor. When the atheists are using fake tropes, they take them out in the cold light of day and they examine them. Go, is this something we should hold to? And they actually do analysis of it that's pretty fair and straightforward. Why? Because they're honest. That's why. It's not that complicated. Their agenda is seeking the truth, not necessarily making sure atheists come out on top. A lot of the other people, their agenda is what? Scoring fake points for atheism. That's their agenda. That's their agenda. So they don't hold to things that don't help them score fake points for atheism. That's the criteria. Is it useful? For what? For scoring fake points. If it's not, they don't hold to it. Even though it may be useful for understanding the truth. That's why this is going to favor the theist. That's one reason. There's another reason. Okay, presuppositions are very important. Okay, presuppositions are of paramount importance. Sometimes they are the entire ballgame. For example, the one thing I got pushed back on, there's only one thing that people push back on me just about from the other videos on this topic, okay? I said, the atheists hold to a paradigm of reality that is far too resolute. Assume, prior to engaging with anything I have to say to them, they usually assume really resolutely the supernatural does not occur. Now, I got pushed back on that one in two key areas. One said they don't do it, that they take each claim as they come. Would that were the case? That's not the case. And the other guy said that I presuppose that atheists do this. Okay, I tried to explain to him that's not a presupposition. Why? Because a presupposition is an assumption, just so everyone's clear on this. Okay, why I'm not presupposing that? If something is based off of my experience and my observations, that is not a presupposition. That is empirical. That is evidence. Okay, if it is based off prior. So if I told you that atheists do X prior to me ever meeting an atheist, then that would be an assumption. Atheists resolutely, a lot of people do that, by the way. That's why people get mad at Christians, because they sometimes just assume things about atheists having never met an atheist. They do that. They do. My wife does it, actually, to tell you God's honest truth. If you're an atheist, my wife is a wonderful person, but she's got a bias against you. I'll tell you straight up. She's pretty good with almost every other type of person, but atheists, she hasn't met enough. So she doesn't necessarily even want to relax her bias. But she assumed an assumption or an assumption, a presupposition is something you adopt prior to ever engaging with atheists. So if I told you atheists, assume the supernatural does not occur prior to ever meeting an atheist, then yeah, that'd be an assumption and a presupposition to be unwarranted. I'm telling you based off of my experience with atheists, based off of my observation and my experience. And my observation and my experience is relevant to everybody in this space. Why? Because it includes this entire, just about every who's who of the atheists and the atheist community been on my channel. Genetically Modified Skeptic, Paula Gia, Shannon Q, Seth Andrews. I've interviewed them personally, okay? And I've watched everybody that you've ever thought of that you think is an influential or important atheist. I've watched probably more videos of them than you have. So my experience and what I'm telling you about my observations about how they roll, how they operate is completely and 100% legitimate. Whether everybody does it or only a few people do is irrelevant. Because both of those guys ultimately agreed with me, they just wouldn't admit that they agreed with me, that the standard prior to engaging with what I have to say, most atheists or some atheists, doesn't matter, move is invalid. Resolutely believe the supernatural does not occur. Okay, that's really important. That's really important. If you're an evidentiary apologist, that's important for you too. Why? Because they aren't listening. Unless you get at that presupposition and you weaken it prior to ever talking to them, they aren't gonna listen to your evidence. They aren't gonna process it. Remember what I told you about Shannon Q and Paula Gia, and they weren't doing this dishonestly. They went and looked at the magnum opus of the evidentiary apologist. Here's evidence, clear evidence for the resurrection. And they weren't working very hard at all to not believe in the resurrection. They were barely cracking a sweat. Why? Because you have to get at their prior commitments. A lot of times when you are talking to an atheist, and this is not true of every atheist, so decide with the person right in front of your face. Don't generalize. Find out the person in front of your face. You're either in a debate or you're on a stream with them or you're talking to them on Twitter. Okay? You have to know this ahead of time because for a lot of atheists, the answer will be no. Is the supernatural a live option? Is God a live option? That's really important. Why? Because if the answer is no, you are wasting your time. You are talking to a freaking brick wall. And you're wasting your time. Promise. And furthermore, to make it even worse, okay, if they're a team player atheist, they're going to spend that time jerking your chain. Not only not listening to you, jerking your chain, trying to make you look and sound like an idiot to the best of their ability. The only victory you can hope for in that encounter is to get out of the encounter with having done as little harm to your credibility as humanly possible. That's it. Why? There's no other goal that can be reached. So you have to decide right then and there, is this person legit? Are they honest? Is Christianity, is what I'm talking about, the evidence I present, is it a live option? A lot of times the answer is no. I'll give you the perfect example. I've used it before, but it's the God's honest truth. Okay? Pine Creek Doug and Matt Dillahunty, I presented my religious experiences to both of them. And it was not a live option. 5 to 10 years before they ever met me, they both resolutely decided that there is no way my religious experiences could be evidence in God. No way on earth. And they talked to me as such. And they made that perfectly crystal clear in the questions they asked and the questions they didn't ask. What the questions they didn't ask basically didn't ask me anything. They used the opportunity, both of them. And by the way, Matt Dillahunty is a lot more skillful at this than Pine Creek is. Really, really more skillful. But he used the opportunity to do what? To misrepresent every word that came out of my mouth, lead me down to cul-de-sacs, to try and make me look and sound stupid. Okay? Lead me into cul-de-sacs. Basically, Matt Dillahunty told me I do not have the right to interpret the evidence of my own sense experience. He literally told me that. Then he also told me, in no uncertain terms, he asked me this question. This question is totally insane. Think about what this is actually asking somebody. He said, right now there is a crazy person. I kid you not, I said this word for word. There is a crazy person in an insane asylum somewhere who thinks he's Napoleon. How do you know he's not him? Come again? How do I know? Gee, I don't know. Am I acting like him, Matt? Did I come in and say, I believe in God and God commanded me to kill your co-host? No. So why did he say that? The question didn't even make sense. Did I seem to him like I was crazy? No. So why did he say that? Because most atheists, or a big chunk of atheists, again, not the honest atheists, always make that caveat. Why? Because atheists are very sensitive, very delicate people. You always got to qualify. Always qualify with atheists. Why? Because they never qualify with us. Always qualify with them. Or some of them qualify, but a lot of times they just go theists. Apologists do X. And they say something that I never do. Ever. I resolutely don't do on pain of death. And they say, apologists always do this, and I never do it. So I was trying to qualify. Why? To be fair. Not every atheist does this. I understand that. That's why you've got to ferret out ahead of time. Is the supernatural live option for the person? It's really important. Why? Because that's the thing I'm trying to evidence for. Hello? That's what I'm trying to evidence for. Everybody believes. Let me present the evidence of my religious experience again so everyone's clear what we're talking about. Okay. Put on the worship music. Extraordinary claim. Extraordinary evidence. No, not really. Really mundane, down to earth, do it every day of my life. I put on the worship music every day of my life. Within 5 minutes, okay, I feel the sensus divinatus, what the Christians call the divine presence in the room with me within 5 minutes, no exceptions. Okay? And I feel what the Christians call the peace of God. Now, I qualified both of those, what the Christians call, what other co-religionists call the divine presence. The adjudicated thing, I'll prove it to you, even Derek, when I was watching his stream. He said this without qualifiers, I kid you not. He didn't qualify this at all. He said, natural explanations are more plausible. Come again? Do you see the issue here? Does everybody get this? Christians, you need to hear this too. The atheist who I'm trying to present supernatural evidence to said natural explanations are more plausible. He didn't qualify it. He didn't. He didn't say, to me, the naturalist. He didn't say, to me, to me. He said, by definition more plausible. Well, okay, even Aaron Ra, if I start talking about my religious experiences, even Aaron Ra believes that I put on the worship music. Even Aaron Ra believes that I start praying. Even Aaron Ra believes that I feel peaceful when I do it. Yeah, even I believe that part, guys. Come on. Even he believes that. So what's the contentious territory? Is it supernatural or not? That's the part. The thing that they are rejecting whole hog is the thing I'm trying to evidence for. And if it's not a live option, don't bother presenting the evidence. Why? Because I'll tell you exactly what they'll do. They'll do exactly what Matt Dillahunty did, except less skillfully. They will not listen to you. They will misrepresent every word that comes out of your mouth. They will jerk your chain. They will try to their level best to make you look and sound like an idiot. And they will tell you have no right to conclude in the reality of your own sense experience. Why? Because they don't agree with the conclusion. They don't recognize that that's the only reason that they're giving. They don't agree with your conclusion. Now, why did Matt Dillahunty say that I need to figure out that I'm not a crazy man? Because that's how he hears my mundane claim. Why does he do that? Because atheists spend a lot of time, all atheists do this to some degree or another, even the cool, honest atheists, spend a lot of time propagandizing themselves. Christianity is irrational. Supernatural explanations are by definition irrational. Hello? That's the contentious territory. So if they have really strong biases against what you're trying to present, you need to get at that first. Why? Because they ain't listening otherwise. You're wasting your time otherwise. The only thing I could have hoped for with the Pine Creek Doug and Matt Dillahunty is to get out of the exchange with as little damage to my credibility as possible. That is the only possible victory I could claim. And they weren't listening. They were not listening. Neither of them let me present clearly. Now, it's not true. Remember I said it's not true. If Joe, Answers from Reason Joe, or Danish Debater were asking me questions about my religious experience, I'd assume it'd be a lot different. They'd probably let me present it completely. They'd be skeptical, sure. I didn't say you have, okay, let me go back to the beginning. So here's what you have the right to do as an atheist when someone presents a supernatural claim. Because you are warranted to do this each and every time without exception. Okay, but no further than this. Otherwise you are unwarranted. This is what you are warranted to do. I make a supernatural claim. Let me say, Ouija boards open up a realm to the supernatural, a doorway to the supernatural. Here's what you are warned to say. I doubt it, Craig. Okay, fair enough. Call me skeptical, Craig. Okay, fair enough. Prove it, Craig. Stupid theist, you believe anything. Okay, a little bit insulting, but fair enough. You are completely and 100% warranted to be completely skeptical about that claim and hold off judgment, not believe it, not assent to it, unless and until I present sufficient evidence for you to believe it. You are free to be as skeptical as you want, coming, going, morning, noon, and night. What you are not free to do, which a lot of atheists do, is assume it's irrational and totally outlandish, and there's no reason anybody would believe that ever prior to investigating the claim. And you can't tell me atheists don't do that. Why? Because they've done it to me personally. That's why I judge so much on personal experience. Why? Because then I know what I'm talking about. That's why I go so deeply into personal experience, because then I absolutely case closed know what I'm talking about. The 2 times that was done to me personally. So don't tell me atheists don't do it. Why? Because they did it to me personally. Hello. They did it. They've done it. Illegitimate. Not acceptable. Matt Dillahunty spends every day saying, if somebody would call up and present evidence, I tried, you wouldn't let me. I literally tried, you wouldn't admit it as evidence. Why? Because they literally tell you, extraordinary claim, my claim is not extraordinary, requires, keyword, requires extraordinary evidence. Which means what? Which means it's not going to be admitted as evidence unless you blow their mind from here to tomorrow. That's what they're saying ahead of time. They're telling you ahead of time. You have to do pre-subs. Why? Because you've got to make that fertile territory. Don't waste everybody's time. Because you're talking to a brick wall. Or worse. You're either talking to a brick wall or worse, or someone who's going to jerk your chain and try and make you look and sound as stupid as possible. That's worse than a brick wall. Either way, not valid. So, that's why pre-sub has to come in. That's why pre-sub has to come into the picture. If someone's an honest atheist, like a la Joe from Answers from Reason, yeah, he just wants to find out if he's got reason to believe in my God based off my religious experience, I just straight up tell him the truth as best as I can. Why? He's not going to play games with me. He's not going to jerk my chain. Pleasure of doubt, same idea. I had videos with Pleasure Doubt. He wouldn't jerk my chain at all. Why? It's beneath him. Integrity. Would never do it. A lot of times integrity is just a way someone acts. And they usually don't violate their standards of integrity. Why? Because they won't. I don't know. When you find out that someone's integrity, take that to the bank. Why? Because you can't fake integrity, guys. And I'll give you some examples of people with integrity, but it would call me into question. Why? Because I give some people very high levels of. I credit Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic with a lot of integrity. I'm sure people roll their eyes, but I do. Ditto for Paul Gia. I do. I know sometimes he can be a team player atheist a lot in a way that's gimmicky, but I credit him with integrity. That's why I gave him 2.5 hours to tell his story on my channel, and he didn't lie to me a single time. He didn't say one false sentence. He did not. Neither did Drew. If they did, I'd tell you. Why? Because I catch them. I'm good at that. I can size people up really well. Neither of them said one false sentence to me. Why did I let them talk for 2.5 hours? Because I wanted to hear their story, and I knew they'd tell me the truth, which means I knew they had integrity. There were some other people who would dance around and play games with me. The guy who I can talk out, normally I wouldn't talk out of school about someone on my channel, but this guy has become persona non grata. Ostensibly, he beat a girl, I guess. I don't know, beat his daughter. What's his name? Mustache Jim. I don't even remember his name anymore. Mustache Jim jerked my chain. It was like pulling teeth with him. Why? Because he was telling me stories to present atheism in the best possible light and try and make it convincing. It was really obvious. He was jerking my chain, telling me, maybe the stories happened, but I doubt it. Okay, Paul G didn't do that. He just told me straight up what happened, period. He wasn't presenting it in a package so that I'd believe atheism at all. Neither was Drew. They weren't casting it a certain light so that I'd walk away from the encounter going, oh, God, he's really got good reason to believe in atheism. And consequently, I didn't jerk their chain at all. I didn't do any of what I didn't pull any of the games Matt Dillahunty or Pine Creek Doug pulled with me. Not a single one. I didn't jerk their chain. I didn't misrepresent words that come out of their mouth. Just had them tell me their story as cleanly, as honestly as humanly possible, and I just listened. Pretty much. The only question I'd ask is to get more information. But I never tried to put them in a cul-de-sac. Well, now that you've discovered that, I guess you do think theism is a live option. You know, I never tried to play games with them at all. Go listen to the interviews if you don't believe me. Didn't misrepresent a single sentence that came out of their mouth. Didn't try to trap them at all, ever. So, getting back to the issue at hand. Presuppositions are really important. If you do not get at the person's presuppositions, you are wasting your time. Why? Supernatural isn't a live option. Neither is God. So, work on the presuppositions until it is. Otherwise, you're talking to a brick wall. And if you can't work on their presuppositions until it is, go to somebody else. Go to somebody else. Why? It should be a live option. It should be a live option. You don't know. God doesn't exist is what you think. You don't know. And if you let me present the evidence, you may start to doubt yourself. And if I can't get you to doubt yourself through the evidence, then I need to work on your presuppositions. Why? Because you hold to the supernatural does not occur way too resolutely. More justified than you were warranted. So did I finish with this is what you have the right to say. You have the right to, I think I finished with this, I'll repeat it one more time. If I say the Ouija board opens up a doorway to the supernatural realm, you are perfectly within your rights to say, I doubt it, Craig. Call me skeptical. Prove it, Craig. Don't call me, you idiot, Thea. You don't have to do that part. You don't have to do that part. That's the part I like. I understand that. But that's not necessary. You idiot theist, you believe anything. Craig believes anything. Ouija boards, give me a break. Okay, what you do not have the right to do is categorically reject it out of hand, and oftentimes you do. Why? Because you're on a propaganda wheel called the atheist community. And a lot of the times you talk to each other and you spend morning, noon, and night convincing yourself that all supernatural claims are the same and they're all equally irrational and outlandish. That's why I say to Matt Dillahunty, a perfectly mundane, reasonable claim that isn't extraordinary, that if I said to a person who attends my church that I feel the peace of God within 5 minutes, someone go, well, I don't really experience that. It's not a faith claim, by the way, it's an experiential claim. Big difference. Not declaring anything by faith. I'm telling you what I actually experience. It literally feels seems like the sense of the divine presence. Sensus divinus, like the presence is in the room with me. Okay? So how does he hear that? He hears that through his propaganda wheel. Little green men paint the ceiling. That's why he compared me to a crazy man right off the bat. That's very revealing. I didn't say anything irrational. I said it irrational in his worldview, his paradigm of reality. Do you get it now? Does everybody understand why this is important? Even evidentiary apologists. He heard it as Crazy talk. Why? Because that's his paradigm of reality. If I don't weaken that first, why bother presenting anything? Then he has this go-to gimmicky thing where he dismissed my experience, which Pine Creek did too. He told me once upon a time, long ago, he was a Baptist, and he felt that all warm and gooey inside. Okay, now he realizes it wasn't the Holy Spirit, he just felt all warm and gooey inside. I have a perfectly legitimate explanation. He didn't want to hear it. That's the point. He didn't want to hear it. I have a perfectly legitimate explanation. Somebody who cares about the truth would want to hear that. He didn't. That should tell you something. He didn't want to hear it. Okay, once upon a time, long ago, I don't know if he did experience God or if he did not. But if there is such a thing as a sensus divinitatis, a sense of the divine presence, then I am 100% correct that you can amplify it so that it's really powerful and clear. And then you don't doubt it. If you ask me, do I experience God through my religious experiences in the privacy of my own home, I would 100% answer yes, 100% case closed. I would bet my life on it, literally bet my life on it. Now, that's not true of every religious experience I've ever had, and that's not true of every religious experience out there to be had. So, for example, once upon a time, when I was an alcoholic, you've heard of, even some atheists might, like my sister, for example, when my mom was in the hospital and on her last legs, my sister, who was not a believer, went to church just to sit in the building. Why'd she do that? Because she might have gotten some small sense of peace and comfort. You understand that that's a realistic thing, right? A lot of people might do that in a situation. They go to the church building and just sit in the pews. Why? Because it gives them some small sense of sensus divinitatis. Did she actually experience God's presence there? Don't know. Why? It's not resolute enough. A low resolution spiritual experience. You can question whether you even had it at all. Why? Because it's low resolution. It's like you see someone far off in the distance. You go, is that Joe? You can't really see it, can't make it out. You're not going to bet your life on it. Why? Because you can't see him. It's fuzzy. It's not clear. You put Joe right up in front of your face and someone say, is that Joe right in front of you? You go, yeah, cheerio, Craig. It's me. It's me. Good, smashingly good video, Craig. I understand that, Joe. Is that Joe? You say, yeah, that's Joe. I'd bet my life on it. Why? Because I'd see him right in front of my face. I have absolutely no reason to doubt it. Same idea, same principle. He wouldn't even hear that. He wouldn't even allow me to say those words and string it together so it was coherent. That should tell you a lot. Wow, what's he afraid of? He's afraid that I'll make sense. He's afraid that will make complete sense to him. and say, well, even if it didn't make complete sense to him, why? Because he's decided a long time ago that it's illegitimate. It would make complete sense to somebody in his audience. Why? Because what I just said made complete sense. Prior to me being a Christian, I was an agnostic. I remember that when I was in the last legs of my alcoholism, sometimes I'd get 2 6-packs and I'd go sit on a church stoop and drink. Why? I don't know. But I used to do it a lot. Was I getting some sort of sense of peace? Was I kind of sensing God there? I don't know. I don't know why I used to do it. Could be. Did I sense God there? I would never bet my life on it. Another time when I thought I might have experienced God was when I was in England with my wife. My wife is half English. And there's a lot of cool broken down churches. We were in, I think it's the Cotswolds technically. I'm not sure. Sherborne is the name of the town. Awesome. West Country of England. It's absolutely incredible there. Absolutely incredible. It's really English. Blow your mind. It's just such a cool place. But we pulled over once to this broken down church from like the 1600s and we were just mesmerized. Walked around taking pictures. And I felt this strange sense of like peace. And was I experiencing God? I don't know. Not sure. I wouldn't bet my life on that. Why? Because it was very vague. It was a vague feeling of like this. It was cool experience. And I was like, wow, this is like the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. Maybe I was just tripping out on the cool old buildings. Don't know. Wouldn't bet my life on it. Would I bet my life that I'm experiencing God when I turn on the worship? Absolutely, I'd bet my life on it. Wouldn't even hesitate. Someone put a gun to my head and said, is that God? You lie, you die. Is that God? I'd say yes. 100%. I believe that's God with every fiber of my being. 100%. No doubt. No doubts in my mind. I 100% believe that's God. That's what I would say. If you ask me about the experience of the church, you say, was that God? I go, probably, but I'm not sure. So Matt Dillahunty, had an experience that he believed was God then, and now he doesn't believe it, and that's somehow means what? Doesn't mean anything at all. That's the point. Okay, you're an atheist now, so you've dismissed an experience that you had 30 years ago that by definition is now really low resolution. You couldn't even explain like what people were around you. You couldn't even tell me who was with you. You couldn't tell me anything about that experience. But now case closed, it wasn't God? Maybe. Maybe it wasn't. Probably wasn't. It could be. Who knows? It's nowhere near conclusive. It's not even close. It should not be admitted as evidence. Why? Far away and long ago. Okay, there's a reason why they have a statute of limitations on some things. Why? Because it was a long time ago. And your memory fades and your memory distorts. Is he telling me the truth? Probably, as far as he knows. But does that mean it resolutely wasn't God? No. Maybe it was a small little experience of the Holy Spirit. I don't know. The point is the disputed territory, okay, when I put on that worship music, which nobody doubts I do, and I feel peace, which nobody doubts that I do. I don't think anybody doubts that part, okay? Am I actually experiencing the divine presence, or is it my gay little feelings? Is it my gay little feelings? It's just a gay little feeling. It's a gay little feeling, Craig. Who knows? But that's the disputed territory, okay? So if Derek says natural explanations are more plausible, and he meant by definition more plausible without qualifiers, then I have to work on him ahead of time before telling him about that story. Why? Because he's just not going to accept it as relevant to anything we're talking about yet. Why? Because he's very firmly committed to the proposition the supernatural does not occur. And it's not warranted. So you have the right to say three things. I doubt it, Craig. Call me skeptical, Craig, or prove it. And you can be as skeptical as you want. I'm not saying anybody should base their belief in God off of my testimony of my religious experience. I understand that it is very limited. Okay, why is it limited? Because you have no epistemic access to my inner world. You could believe that I believe it. Most people, no one, very rarely does anybody ever accuse me of lying. Really obvious I'm telling the truth. You would accuse me of, ginning it up or, I imagine it's God, but it isn't. Okay, fair enough. That's pretty obvious. Okay, but what you cannot do is resolutely say, there's no way it could be God. Why? You aren't me. The same way you don't have to accept it, and you have no epistemic access to my inner world because you aren't me. So it's not necessarily great evidence for you. So it's limited as an argument. I understand that. It's also limited what conclusions you can draw on the negative. Why? Because you aren't me. You aren't me. Matt Dillahunty had a somewhat religious experience 30 years ago. It's not the same thing. If he pretends that's the same thing, he's distorting that. He's distorting that on purpose. What for effect? To promote atheism. Not because that's true or a valid corollary. It's not. It was experienced 30 years ago. I had religious experience prior to the one I was admitting as evidence. I just told you some of them. Did I think they were God? No, not necessarily. That's the point. Judging back now, I kind of sort of think they were, but I still wouldn't bet my life on it. You see the difference? I would never admit them as evidence. Why? Because I don't know. You get it now? So if you're talking to an honest actor atheist, you can tell your story. Why? Whatever they get from it is what they get from it. Just be honest, period. That's it. Most of their presuppositions have to do with what Christians are like anyways. So you'll do a lot of good work just by them seeing, okay, Christian's a reasonable person. He doesn't hate me because I'm gay, this, that, and the other thing. He doesn't seem to be irrational. I can't discern any irrationality. At least it's not obvious. So you do a lot of good work just by being honest. And they'll go, okay, so at least some Christians are honest and not too crazy. I can track with that. And if they are resolutely don't believe you, then you got to go to precepts. You got to work on them. Why? Because they're geared up for war. Don't pretend that they aren't. Why? Because it's stupid. There's no point in pretending. Do precepts on those people. Why? Because they need it. They need to be boxed upside the head. Precept is by definition more offense. It's more aggressive. Like I said, be aggressive. Be aggressive. Not with the people who don't need it. Is Derek one who needs it? I don't know. I'm torn over Derek. I told you when he said, I'm not a philosopher, that you should stand down. But then Derek has a stream with Dr. Josh where it was imbecile triumphalism. Imbecile triumph. They were triumphal. The whole stream was like the triumph of the secular. I swear to God, it was like mind-blowing. And they kept saying how much better they are than Christian apologists, categorize us all the same. Dr. Josh brought up this example of what Christian apologists do, and it's something that I've never done in my entire life. I forget exactly what it was. Something about gleefully cackled about how people were burning in hell or something like that. I don't remember. What the person did was really obnoxious, true, but it's not anything I've ever done in my entire life. So he generalized about all Christian apologists do this. They do a lot of that. And they said, well, they don't recognize this. And they're very vague about the things that Christian apologists weren't getting right. To their credit, they did seem to anybody listening, they did seem to think that Michael Heiser and somebody else, Walton, I think that's his name, John Walton or Josh Walton. I think it's John Walton, Old Testament guy. They seem to think those guys are legitimate scholars. Okay. Other than that, they thought a lot of our scholars weren't that good. I have no dog in the fight. I don't know. They could be right. But what I point out time and time again, to triumphalism is ridiculous. Why? Because it's not justification for atheism. Not a single sentence that came out of their mouth could be said, this is why God does not exist. Okay, so not a single sentence that comes out of their mouth was relevant to atheist versus Christianity. They may be right about the scholarship. I assume they dot their I's and cross their T's. I assume they're getting the historicity correct. And probably there's a lot of fundamentalist Christian who, wrestle with them on things that are debatable. I don't know this very well. I understand there is a controversy over whether the Old Testament happened, and part of the reason there's a controversy is that nobody's ever found, any evidence that 6 million people, I guess, traversed through the desert because there's no tents and there's no pots and pans and things like that. Okay, that makes some sense. The most plausible explanation I heard was one of their scholars. I forget his name, but I think he's a Jewish guy, actually, so I think he's technically a believer. He streams with them. Don't remember his name. He's pretty cool. I talked to him about Bob Marley. It's the only time I remember talking to him online. We both seem to agree that Bob Marley is cool, but his point was that the Exodus was probably loosely based on historical occurrences, and Exhibit A, I don't remember if this is just Exhibit A that I think or Exhibit A that he presented, but Exhibit A is Moses is a Egyptian name. Okay. That to me is conclusive evidence that it's at least somewhat predicated on historical fact. Why? Nobody would have the presence of mind back then. We better name him Moses. We better give him an Egyptian name. Why? Because 1,000 years from now, they're going to wonder if this was real. So no one would have the presence of mind to do that. They give him a Hebrew name. If it was just something they made up, they'd be consistent with being made up around the boards. They wouldn't bother to give him an Egyptian name. That's what I think, and I could be wrong, but that makes sense to me, but irrelevant. His point was that it's probably loosely based on history and had a whole bunch of reasons why. He's one of their scholars. I don't remember his name. He used to stream with what's-her-face who left, Jessica. And I don't remember his name. I'll look him up if anyone's curious. But he said it was probably loosely based on, it was their stream. I was watching their stream and he was bringing it up to them and they didn't object to anything he said. So I'm telling you stuff that they're cool with. I don't understand how it's triumphalism for atheism. It isn't. They didn't present it like triumphalism for their version of scholarship. They presented it like triumphalism for atheism, which is absurd. It's got nothing to do with atheism. Not a single sentence out of any of their mouths had anything to do with the proposition God does not exist. Couldn't reasonably infer as evidence for atheism. So it's no justification for atheism at all. If you examine most of the atheist triumphalism, you're going to find that to be the case. What they don't actually correspond to the ontological status of God. The things they're saying may be right. The earth isn't 6,000 years old, Craig. See? Case in point. Okay, never said it was. It's not 6,000 years old, you dumb theist. Ergo, Christianity is false. Ergo, God doesn't exist. You see how it works? Trucking inferences that don't logically follow automatically apply. Do it all the time. It's what I call the sleight of hand school of counter-apologetics. They were 2 hours of triumphalism. But they didn't tell us what they were triumphing over. They didn't tell us what they knew that the Christians were getting all wrong. They were very vague, okay? And the one thing that they absolutely resolutely did not do because they could not do was tell us why this was any evidence for atheism. It isn't. It may be evidence for, like I've said in the past, it may be pretty good evidence for, to challenge the inerrancy of the scriptures. Okay, fair enough. But if you don't believe that, or if you're not sure that you believe the Bible's inerrant, then it's of no consequence. I have no idea if the Exodus happened or not. I have no dog in that fight. It's not relevant to me. God could exist and the Exodus could have not happened as written. God could exist and the Exodus could have happened, as written. It's not relevant to what? To the ontological status of God. So there's no reason to be triumphalism in an atheist context. And they didn't directly infer we're being triumphalist because of atheism, but read between the lines. I mean, it's Myth Vision podcast stream. He's an atheist. They're saying Christian apologists have no good arguments. They aren't being very specific about which ones we're wrong about. So it was under this whole basket, which easily every atheist went, see, we're right and they're wrong. See? Got to get the precepts. Anyway, so I guess I'll wrap it up. I was going to go into more. Yeah, wow, way long. So I'll let it go. I'll go into this in depth in other videos to come. So don't worry, pretty little head. You know, if you're hungry for this content, you can't get it. I'm hungry for this content, Craig. Can't get enough of it. I understand. I feel your dilemma. I can't churn it out faster. You know, I'm very limited in my time to make these videos, and then I can't post, you know, one every day or so. So they come few and far between. But you know, I will get back and go in depth. There needs to be part of a comprehensive package. You can't just present stuff to people who aren't listening. This is a total waste of time at best. At best case scenario, it's a waste of your time and their time. And at the worst, what's happening is they're using that time to undercut you and undermine your message and spread doubt in their audience. Why? Because they're doing their level best to misrepresent what comes out of your mouth and make you look and sound like an idiot. Promise. That's been happening the whole time. They even tried to do it to me. And it is really freaking hard to get the jump on me, I promise. Matt Dillahunty's good at it. It's really hard to do. In the real world, in real life, I don't think I've ever had anyone get the jump on me, ever. Size up situations really, really quickly and easily, and usually finesse them without even thinking about it. Could do it in my sleep, usually. Honestly, I would do things that a lot of people won't do in real life. I used to go to Manhattan bar hop by myself. A lot of people will never do that. Why? Because you have to make friends on the spot. You have to, you know, go up to people and go, "Hi, I'm Craig. You want to hang out?" And I never wind up not meeting people, never wind up not staying out till 3 a.m, getting all these adventures. I do it by myself because sometimes my friends were lame. I liked my friends from there, but, you know, sometimes they weren't adventurous enough for me. They wanted to do the same things over and over again, and I wanted to meet girls, so that's why I do it. But that was the real motivation, but it was also fun, you know. I knew I could handle any situation that come up, and I'd meet people, and a lot of people could never do that. Most people listening to me could not go into a bar by themselves and hang out for 3 hours. You'd feel dumb immediately, and you'd walk out feeling embarrassed and wouldn't know who to talk to or how to do it. I would go in there, have a drink, start up a conversation with whoever, and next thing I know, I'd be hanging out with this group of people, that group of people, and be hanging out till 3 a.m. Do it all the time. A lot of people couldn't do that. A lot of people couldn't do that. I do it all the time. When I traveled by Europe, part of the time I went by myself. I was on a Eurail by myself. And every night I'd meet people. How? Same strategy. I'd get a stein of beer. For example, when I was in Germany, there was the Englischer Garden. Get a big stein of beer and wait until I heard English. Hear people talking English. "Oh, you're from America. Where you from?" Sit down and talk to them. Usually I'd be hanging out with them until 3 a.m. So, you know, a lot of people couldn't do that. That would be really hard for a lot of people to do. I did it all the time. So why did I bring that up? Why did I bring that up? I don't remember. It was relevant to something I said, but I don't remember exactly what. So there you have it, kids. A little rambly, you know, but still a, you know, perfectly awesome Craig video, you know, right up there with some of the best, I think. And there's really good content coming down the pipe because this whole presuppositional apologetics thing, I am not a presupper. These are under the banner of presuppositional apologetics. And I think we need to add it to a comprehensive apologetics package where we take some notice of what the person really resolutely holds to prior to engaging with us. Why? Because it's really important. Everyone recognizes that Matt Dillahunty and Pine Creek Doug weren't listening to me, correct? Correct? Everyone gets that. So there's no point in presenting any evidence at all until either they're listening to me or I've done some work on them to weaken their resolve. There's no point. The only way that could go, the best case scenario is I come out of that situation looking somewhat like I'm not a total idiot with my credibility somewhat intact. That's the best that I could do in that situation. Even me. That's how I got started on Manhattan. Well, handling people. In real life, I'm really good at handling people. Really good. You know, I'm okay on it here, but it's different. It's hard in a Zoom call. In real life, you know, I'm really good at it. That's my point. Finesse people in social situations in my sleep. Easily. Don't do it anymore. You know, it's not interested, but I used to be really good at it. So that's the issue. You have to decide. Is the supernatural, is God a live option for this person? If it is not, and oftentimes the answer will be no, don't bother presenting anything. Either get at the presuppositions or go to somebody else. So there you have it, kids. That is all for now. Another slam dunk of a video, if you ask me. I guess I have a little bit of a bias, but I'm not presupposing it was a slam dunk video. I made the video, and based off of my observation and experience of my own video, I was like, wow, that was really excellent. Made some great points in that video, if I do say so myself. So it's based on my experience of the video. So there you have it, kids. That is all for now. Mass is ended. Go in peace. Amen.